So it was just over a week ago, a week and a half ago, there was a lone gunman climbed up onto the roof with a long rifle and took his shot towards President Trump. Narrowly missing, I don't know, an inch, couple inches from potentially killing the former president. Now, you know, what I find interesting is since then, just to see the response and the reaction of so many people. On one side, you have people that are disgusted somebody would do such a vile act, and they're angered and all of that. On the other side, there are actually people in this world that are disappointed that he missed. And I think both can really be tragic. But one thing that it highlights is human nature. I think there's something, especially since 2020, that highlights when you are for one thing, then that means you have to oppose the other. And obviously in this situation, it seems like he opposed President Trump and the ideologies that President Trump is all about, thus wanting to eradicate him. Now, I would hope that no matter what, you would see the vile nature that is, right? That it's not okay to want to kill somebody because they believe differently than you. But I think one thing we see throughout our culture is that's everywhere. Because I am a white, middle-aged male, well, culture would say I'm supposed to be racist. Or because I love the Bible and I love Jesus, well, then I'm supposed to dislike the barista at Starbucks wearing a rainbow pin. And you see, that's as inaccurate as that is, that's kind of the premise. It seems like that when you're for one thing, then that means you have to be completely against the other. There's so much division and divisiveness. But how does that work also with difficult people in our lives? You know, I certainly have people in my life that I struggle with, and I'm going to assume that you have people in your life that you struggle with. And how are we to navigate those relationships, those situations, and those things? And that's exactly what the church in Rome was wrestling through as well. In Paul's letter to Romans in chapter 12, you know, Paul's pretty clear on how we are to respond and what it looks like as a Christian to respond in a culture that just seems to be spiraling out of control with division. And so what he says in Romans 12, verse 14, he says, "Bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Don't be proud, but be willing to associate of low position. Don't be conceited. Do not repay anyone for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the sight of everyone. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." Now, let me pause right there. Live at peace with everyone. So no matter what you believe or what you stand for, live at peace with everyone. So whether you are a Biden supporter, live at peace with the guy in the red hat. If you wear the red hat, live at peace with a Biden supporter. If you love Jesus, live in peace with those of the LGBTQ community. Live at peace with those. Live at peace. I want you to hang on to that. Do not take revenge, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, "It is mine to avenge. I will repay." If your enemy's hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Now, try to tell me someone else in the world that would say that. If your enemy's hungry, feed him. If your enemy's thirsty, give them drink. Don't be overcome by evil. Now, I think that sounds real fun and good when we're sitting on our couch reading this in Scripture, but how do we live that out in our lives? I think that's where it gets tough, because you know what? I have difficult people in my life. Chances are you have difficult people in your life, and how are we to navigate those difficult relationships, those difficult moments, and those difficult times? You know, here's the thing that I know, and this is what Paul is expressing, is loving people doesn't mean they're right. Loving people doesn't mean you agree with them, and loving people doesn't mean that you're submitting to what they're all about. Loving people is simply saying, God, you're in control and I'm not. God, you told me to love them. I'm doing my job. God, you do your job. And so look, I don't know what difficult people you have in your life today, but Scripture's pretty clear, and I want to invite you to spend time in Romans 12. Don't miss what God is saying right here through Paul of what it means to love your neighbor as yourself. This is what Jesus did. This is what Jesus calls us to do, to love those around us, to live in peace with one another. And so, believe me, if you love Jesus, if you are a professing Christian, there's nobody that should model this more in the world than you and me. Not because we have to, but because we get to. And that's what it means to live on mission with Jesus. So hey, thanks for spending a few minutes with us. We'll see you back next week.